This meeting is being recorded.
All right, there we go. Okay, so my question was, did we do an opening purchase or did we do an opening sale?
I believe an opening purchase.
You are correct, and that's very testable. So opening purchases are used to establish or add to a long position. And so indeed, we did an opening purchase. Now, the reason that's going to be important is because later on, there's three things that can happen in this option contract that we're looking at. And the three things that can happen in this option contract is this option contract can be traded, this contract can be exercised, or the contract can expire. And if the question on the test says that we exercised it, that's going to be different than if we traded it. So if they say on the test, for example, let me just move this going here. If they say, for example, that we traded this contract, we need to kind of know what the offset is going to be. And so what I mean by that is we paid 9 points for this contract. Now I like to do things per share, but if you want, you could do it, $900. I just think it's a mess to have all the zeros floating around personally, but however you get there, you need to get there. So here I'm going to put 9 is our money out. And what I'm hinting at is if we go to close this out at some point, we have to know that that's going to be a closing sale if we're going to trade it, right? So that's kind of where we're at. So this is, I call all we're doing so far is the setup. We haven't really done anything except, establish this. This is a choice to buy the stock. So one thing I like to do in terms of process is just to keep myself straight on what I'm looking at is underneath it. I like to write, what am I looking at? And are we clear that what I'm looking at, what we're looking at is a choice to buy the stock at the strike price. So let's put that there. Put that over there. Okay, your choice. What is the break even, max gain, max loss, bullish or bearish? I'll take any of these answers over here from you. So anyone you want to give me, I will accept, because those are the things you got to be able to do on the test.
So, so the break even should be 179.
You are correct. Strike price plus premium. Break even is 179. So let's put that there. And let's get a little bigger font. Okay, so you nailed that. Let's put that there. Boom. Okay, what else can you tell me?
Max gain, unlimited.
Absolutely. So far, you're passing with flying colors.
Good to hear.
Okay, max loss.
Premium.
Right on. Bullish or bearish?
Bullish.
Excellent. Okay, so the reason I start with that very basic position is because when people show up in a tutoring session, I don't know, what they know, what they don't know. You pass that with flying colors. Let me give you a tougher one. Okay, so there's our next position. And again, we're going to be interested in break even. We're going to be interested in max gain. We're going to be interested in max loss. We're going to be interested in bullish or bearish. Now, before we do that, though, there are other things we're interested in. There are other things that we are interested in before we do that. And one thing we're going to be interested in is, did you do an opening purchase or did you do an opening sale to establish this position?
Open and sell.
Excellent. That's how you establish a short position. Now, we said that three things can happen to this contract. We said this contract can be traded. This contract can be exercised. This contract can expire. So I'm your broker. This is the position in your account. And I call you and I say, Carlton, you know those December Apple puts that you sold? They expired worthless. Are you happy or sad if I call you and say that this contract expired worthless?
I think I'd be pretty happy.
You're right on, because that would be your max gain, right? You agree to be a potential victim. Nobody victimizes you. And you say, thank you very much. Neener, neener, neener. Right? So that's exactly correct. Okay, so break even. What is the break even in this position?
The break even should be 161.
You should feel really good about your performance thus far.
It's good to hear.
You are absolutely correct. Are you bullish or are you bearish?
And I'm bullish.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, I personally, I was in a jerk, Carlton. I purposely put a short put up there because that's the one that people get hung up on. I don't get it. I sell it to buy it. And you got everything right. Now, the penalty for being excellent in these beginnings is now I'm going to step it up in a big way.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is right now, I feel pretty good about selling those puts and I'm hoping they expire. But I think, you know what, if I'm wrong and the stock goes down, somebody can stick it to me. And I'm kind of a little concerned that the floor is all the way down there at 0. And while I think it's going down, or excuse me, going up, I don't want to be at risk if it, blows up in my face. And so your point, you were correct. We got 9 points here. We want this to expire. And that was a 170 put. But what we might want to decide to do is we might decide that we might want to offset. And let's just get that on here. We might want to offset our obligation to buy at 170. With a choice to sell. So as your broker, I call you up and I say, you know what I think we want to consider doing is offsetting our obligation to buy with a choice to sell. That way, Carlton, if it blows up and somebody sticks it to us, we can stick it to the next guy. So I'm about to buy a lower strike put. That's what I'm about to do. So test question, is Dean about to create a straddle, a spread, a condor, a butterfly, a flamingo, an alligator? What am I about to create if I'm going to go long a put? So if I'm long and short, the same type of contract. So right now I'm short a put and I'm about to go long a put. What am I going to be creating?
See, this is one I need a little help with.
That's cool. That's why you get tutoring. So,
Yep.
That's why we went up to the notch on you. So now what we're going to do is we're going to buy.
I believe just to give an answer though, would it be a spread?
That's exactly what we're creating. And you have to be able to identify a spread. You have to be able to identify a spread on the test. And so now we've got 2 legs going on. This is called an advanced option strategy. And test question number 1 is, can you identify the spread? And a spread is when you're long and short the same type of contract. So now we have 2 things going on. We got a 170 put and we got a 160 put. What we're spreading, by the way, is the difference in the premiums. That's where most people get hung up. It's like a football game, right? If we're betting on a game, I say, hey, what's the spread? The spread is the difference in the scores. And some people want it to be in between the 2 numbers, the spread, and some people want outside of the spread. Spread means difference. Every time you hear the word spread, that means difference. Okay, so we have identified this as a spread. So the next thing we have to be able to do on the test is we have to identify whether we're looking at a credit spread or a debit spread. So how do we determine whether this is a debit or a credit spread?
Would it be by the premium?
Yeah, we're going to net the premiums. That's exactly what we're doing. We're spreading the net. That's what the net is. So is that $2 out or dollars in? Is that $2 out or dollars in? That two.
That's $2 out.
Right on. And is that $9 out or is it dollars in?
That's dollars in.
All right. So now we're able to determine whether this is a debit or a credit spread. Is this a debit spread, more money out than in, or is this a credit spread, more money in than out?
Credit.
This is a 7-point credit spread. So we, when we net those two numbers, we end up with a 7-point net credit. All right. So once we get that, we're on kind of on a good road here. The next thing we've got to be able to do on spreads is determine whether we want the contracts to expire or do we want the contracts to be exercised. So this is a credit spread. So this is the position in your account. And if I call you and say these contracts expired, would you be happy or would you be sad if I called you and said these contracts expired?
I believe happy.
Yeah, you'd be happy, right? Because you'd say, gee, Steen, I get to keep the money.
Right.
Now, I think you're kind of a jerk of a customer if you say, well, you know, Dean, had I not bought the 160s, I would have made 9 instead of 7. I said, well, yeah, but you would have been taking all kinds of risks. Why would you do that? I mean, you know, this is a smarter way to take the money without getting blown up, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so the next thing we got to be able to do is we've got to be able to determine, do we want this 7? Because that's what we did. When we did the spread, the net was 7. And so if we go to close out, hardest part to get, don't need to get it. When we did the spread, the difference right now is 7. And if we go to close out, do we want the numbers to be larger or smaller than 7? We want it to be smaller. Anytime we have a credit spread, we want the difference to be smaller. We want it to narrow. If it narrows, we make money. So if I'm your broker and I say, hey, Carlton, the spread narrowed from 7 to 5. You say, ooh, I made, I made 2. Absolutely. That's the hardest part to get. Don't need to get it because it goes together all the time. Now, right now, I'm showing you a credit spread. But if you had to guess what I'm probably going to show you next, probably a debit spread. Right? So those are the two we actually have.
Right.
So let's put that here. So we're doing all our things. By the way, I call this don't hate the 8. These are 8 things you got to know about the spread on your Series 7. You have to be able to, so far we're working on 8, but you got to know 8 things. You got to be able to identify it. It's a spread. You have to be able to determine credit or debit. We said credit. You got to be able to determine expire or exercise. We said expire. You got to be able to do widen or narrow. We said narrow. We're halfway home on all the things they want to know about a spread on your exam. So the next thing we got to do is max gain, max loss. Now, kind of a trick on a spread. The gain and the loss always equals the difference in the strikes. That's the whole point of a spread, is I'm saying I want to play between 170 and 160, and then I don't want to play no more. So as a test taker, you could eliminate any 2 numbers that don't add up to 10. Whatever these 2 numbers are, they have to equal the difference in the strikes. You know, there's a floor and a ceiling. There's a floor here at 160 and a ceiling at 170. So the gain and the loss always equals the difference in the strikes. Now, the difference in the strikes here is 10. And we said the gain and loss always equals the difference in the strikes. And of the two numbers that equal 10, we have one of them already, right? So one of those numbers we already have. And so it'd be really bad form as a test taker to tell me on the test that whatever these two numbers are, you don't pick anyone in the test that's offered to you. It doesn't add up to that, because that's the whole point of a spread. The whole point is I'm saying I want to play between 160 and 170, and then I don't want to play no more. So whatever these two numbers are, they're going to add up to the difference there. So we have here, we have 7. So of these two numbers, the one we have already is the game. You, by the way, shouldn't be struggling at some point that when you collect money, the best case is you keep it. Now, I just think it's easier to say, okay, 7 plus something equals 10.
Right.
If you don't, oh my goodness, as I mentioned, this is just a mess. I wouldn't wish this on you, but if you don't get that 7 plus something equals 10, then you're going to have to memorize that the maximum loss and a credit spread is the difference in the strikes less the net credit. And I just think that's a mental mess. But
Yeah, I think just remembering it totals up to the difference in the
yeah,
strikes.
I just think that's easy, right? By the way,
Right.
if you get the menu done, then you can think about it. Don't think about it till you get that done. But so 7 plus something, that's something that's going to be 3, right?
Yep.
Once you get the menu done, then you can think about it and say, okay, well, let me just think about that for a sec. If, well, let's put this all in there so we have our menu there. If somebody sticks it to me at 170, right? Because I'm the put E at 170 and I'm the put at 160. So it blows up, somebody sticks it to me, I stick it to the next guy. So I lose 10 points, but I got 7, so I lose 3. By the way, that's the whole reason of doing this, by the way. The conversation is not testo, but this is the way to take the money without taking all the risk.
Yep.
Right? Remember, when this is just a put, the break even's 161, and I can lose all the way to 0. So, you know, spreads are all about floors and ceilings. All right, our next thing we got to be able to do, we said there's 8 things, we've done 6. We've identified it. We have determined credit or debit. We've determined expire or exercise. We determined narrow or widen. We've determined max gain, max loss. 2 more things we got to be able to do. We got to be able to do break even. And test taking trick, we know that the break even is somewhere within that range. So it would be not smart as a test taker to take anything that's either above 170 or below 160. Whatever the break even is, it has to be a number within that range, within the floor and the ceiling. Now we have a great mnemonic device, memory aid device for determining break evens in put spreads, and it's push. And that's to remind us, put, subtract from the higher. Put, subtract from the higher. So that's to remind us how we're going to proceed when we're trying to get to break even in a put spread. So we're going to take our higher strike. In this case, our higher strike is 170. We're going to subtract our net premium, which in this case is 7. And we get our break even of 153. All right, last thing we got to be able to do, our 8th thing we got to be able to do is this bullish or bearish? So how are you going to determine whether this is bullish or bearish?
Wait,
In other words, what we're asking is, where do we want Apple to be in relationship to our break even?
Just real quick, the break even should be 163, correct?
Yeah, make sure you keep an eye on the instructor. Good job. I told you I'm terrible at arithmetic. I should use my calculator and see it. I think you're correct. 170 minus 7 is indeed 163. Let's fix that. Boom. I was just seeing if you're paying attention. All right, so 170 minus 7 is indeed 163. Okay. Bullish or bearish?
Bearish.
Well, the way you're incorrect. So that's your first miss of the day. That's okay, though. This is tough one. The larger premium dominates the position. The
Okay.
larger premium dominates the position. And so what we are here is short a put. And when we're short a put, we are bullish. A lot of people make that mistake, by the way. Here's an example of a credit position that is bullish. This is a bullish position. Most of the time you hear credit, you think, oh yeah, Barrett. No, this is actually, we want the Apple to be 170 or higher, Apple to be up, right? So these contracts would expire and we can keep the money. So this is a credit put spread, which is bullish. So those are 8 things that we've got to be able to do. Let's just go back. I'm going to show you another one here in a sec. And we kind of found out what you said you needed help on with options. And so you were an expert on this position, right? You nailed that position.
Mm-hmm.
You told me it was, it's a short put, it's bullish. You said the break even's 161. You said the max gain is 900. The max loss was break even to 0. But then as your broker, I said, well, Carlton, why don't we take part of our 9 points and do some construction? Why don't we take part of our 9 and just in case, why don't we put in a floor? Let's buy a 160 put just in case this thing blows up on us. So the first thing we did, test question 8 things, we identified this as a spread. The next thing we got to be able to do is determine credit or debit. And so we said, well, the way we're going to do that is we're going to net the premiums. And we established this was a credit spread. Once we get credit, we can rock and roll. Because now we got credit, expire, narrow. We'll be right every time. We want the contracts to expire so you can keep the money. That would be great, right? If 170 or higher, Apple's 171 right now. So right now, this isn't a problem. And then the hardest part to get, we said we want to get smaller. We want to narrow the difference in the premiums. We said the max gain, max loss equals the difference in the strikes. So we know that whatever those 2 numbers are, they add up to 10. We already got one of them, which was our 7, which is our max gain. And so we said the max gain plus the max loss equals the difference in the strikes. So bad form to take any 2 numbers that don't add up to that. And then we said our break even, we're going to just push, put subtract from the higher. And there's Dean's wrong answer. And there's Dean's right answer, correction from Carlton. All right, so you're pretty good at basics. So let's try another basic position.
Okay.
Another basic position. And let's say you go long 1 Apple December 170 call at 9. Okay, so we're asking you to demonstrate your prowess once again on a basic position. And was this an opening purchase or an opening sale? What did we do to establish this position?
An open and purchase.
Right on. What is our break even?
179.
You are correct. What is our max gain?
Unlimited.
Right on. What's our max loss?
9.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so don't tell anybody. The conversation is not testable. Don't tell anybody. I don't have $900. And so it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to play because it's going to cost $900 and, we can't lend you money to buy options.
All right.
And I also don't like that I'm going to need Apple to go to 179 to cover my out-of-pocket cost. So what I think I'm going to do is sell the higher strike calls to help me pay for the lower strike calls. I'm going to lower my out-of-pocket costs. By lowering my out-of-pocket cost, I'll lower my risk and I'll lower the amount of volatility. Again, the conversation is not testable. But buying options is tough because when you buy Apple, you only have to be right about one thing, Carlton, direction up. And you have forever to be right. Here, you got to be right about 3 things. You do the long haul, I'll do the advanced option strategy. So this is what you're going to do in your account. And so you're saying Apple's going to go up at least 9 points between now and December. So you got to be right with three things: direction up, how far, 9, and you got to be right about the timing, third Saturday, right? Or third
Yep.
Friday, excuse me. I'm going to lower my out-of-pocket cost. So what Dean is going to do is I'm going to sell those higher strikes. So I'm going to go sell or short 1 Apple December. Spreads are all about floors and ceilings. I'm going to go for the 190s. And let's say Dean gets 4 for that. Okay, so we said there are 8 things you've got to know about a spread. And we said the first thing you got to be able to do is identify a spread. A spread is when you're long and short the same type of contract. And what we're spreading again is the difference. That's what spread means, right? When I say, hey, to my bookie, what's the spread tonight? I'm asking, what is the difference in the scores? And he said, well, Dean, what do you want it to be? You want it outside the spread or inside the spread? Depends on my bet, right? I can take either side of that number and say, I'll take the over or the under, depending on, what the numbers look like. So this is a spread. That's our first of our 8 things that we got to be able to do. That's why I call it don't hate the 8. And it's a buffet. If you're menu driven, you can do it any way you want as long as you're coming up with the right answer. But if your process are menu driven, I think it makes life a little easier.
I agree.
You have to, so what I'm saying is that the test phraseology, this is going to say your customer goes short 1 Apple December 190, call it 4, and long 1 Apple December 170, call it 9, when Apple's at 171. What a mess. I would put that on my scratch paper, my official Prometric scratch paper, and line it up. I like to line it like this. I like to put my higher strike on top, my lower strike on bottom. And that helps me a little bit in terms of my process, because what I'm looking at now is a vertical or a price spread. And by the way, if I need to, there's lots of times on the test. Shouldn't run out of time, but I might even go so far as to say, okay, I just want to remind myself what I'm looking at. This is a choice to buy the stock at the strike price. Not testable, but the way I said that is options are about floors and ceilings. And so, maybe I want to put that there just to remind myself what's going on there. And, this is going to be my floor, not testable, but, that's what spreads are all about, floors and ceilings. I'm saying I want to play between 170 and 190, and I don't want to play no more. That's my floor. This is going to be my ceiling, yet not testable. Anything that isn't part of those 8 things is not testable, but anything, I've only done one thing that's testable. Can you tell me you're looking at a spread? But then what we want to be able to do at some point, we understand it, we won't have to do it. So that's a choice to buy. This is an obligation to sell the stock at the strike price. Boom. Okay, so the next thing we want to be able to do, and this one is important because we get this right, we can rock and roll. We want to be able to determine whether this is a debit spread or a credit spread, because if we get this right, we can rock and roll, because then the next things kind of roll all together. And so that's our next thing we want to be able to do. How are we going to determine whether this is a debit or a credit spread?
So for the higher premium, the investor is long, so it should be a debit spread.
Yeah, it is, but you're correct. But I would suggest that we get a little more tighter. And what I mean by that is just, stay with our process and say, okay, this is money out. Right?
Right.
And this is money in. So what I would suggest we do is net those premiums, because that's what the spread is. Right now, the spread, what is the spread? What is the spread? The spread is 5.
Yep.
Right, that's the difference, right? That's what's going on in the spread is those 2 numbers. And so I'm suggesting we might want to net those and say, okay, well, I'm out 9. I brought in 4. PS, Carlton, remember, you're out 9, and now Dean's only out 5. Neener, neener, neener. I'm only at risk 5 points, and you're at risk 9 points. Not testable, but that's what I'm doing here is I'm lowering my out-of-pocket cost. And so this is a credit. Remember, that's what the spread is about, or debit. That's why we call it a spread. We're spreading the difference in those two numbers. And so right now, I'm going to put this in red because it's a net debit of 5. And as we said, once we get that, we can rock and roll, because once we get debit, we're going to be rocking and rolling. What? Let's get a bigger font. Let's put that right there. So this is a net debit. And exercise or expire. So if I get exercised, my broker calls, says, Dean, you got exercised. I go, wonderful. That would be bueno. That means I bought the Apple at 170 and I sold it at 190. So exercise is going to be great. Anytime you pay money, by the way, you want to be able to exercise.
Right.
Right. Even if you're long a 170 call and you want to be able to exercise too, right?
Yep.
So now we got to exercise. So exercise is going to be good. We have said that if that's the case, Dean would make 20, right? If I buy the Apple at 170, which I have a choice to do, and I sell at 190, I'd make 20 points. But, I had to pay for the cost of my ticket. And my ticket costs some money, right? By the way, my ticket costs less than your ticket, my friend. Your ticket costs 9 and mine only cost 5. So it's easier for me to make money. The advantage, by the way, though, is I don't participate past 190, right? You got a 170 call. So Apple goes to 210 or 220 or 240, you're still participating. You didn't put in a ceiling. I have, you have a floor at 170 like I do, but you don't have a ceiling. Hardest part to get, don't need to get it, is this concept of the premiums widening or narrowing. And so here we need to have that, I need that bigger difference there. So when I close this out, I got to have a bigger number than 5. So if the difference in the premiums goes from 5 to 8, I make 3. If it goes from 5 to 9, I make 4. Hardest part to get. So we have determined 4 of our 8 things. 4 of our 8 things. We said there's 8 things you got to know. Now, the next thing we got to know is max gain, max loss. Now, one of our tricks is to know that the max gain and the max loss always equals the difference in the strikes. And as you recall, we already have one of these numbers. Of the 2 numbers that add up to 20, we have one of them already. Right? So we know that whatever these 2 numbers are, they're going to add up to the difference in the strikes. So let's just put that here. There's our difference in our strikes. All the action in a spread takes place between the strikes. All of the action in a spread takes place between that 20 points. That's the whole point of the spread. Now, of those 2 numbers, we've already got one of them. By the way, you shouldn't be struggling. Like I say, I'm pleased, Carlton, as your tutor, that you were squared away on the basics. But one of the common threads is that when you pay money, the worst case is you lose it. I don't care whether you're buying a call, a put, a spread, a straddle. If you're a speculator and you spend money, pretty easy to qualify you. Hey, Dean, is this $500 you can afford to lose? Because, that's the worst case whenever you buy options, right? I had a client who kept losing money and I was trying to counsel him. And I said, why do you keep doing this? I mean, it's just stupid. You keep losing your money all the time. And he said, Dean, you can't win if you don't play. And he quoted the lottery slogan to me. I'm like, okay, well, I better document in your account right now that you have told me that you can't win if you don't play, right? So, as long as you can afford to speculate and, lose some money, then more power to you. So now, as we said, I don't wish this upon you. I do not wish this upon you. But if you don't know that whatever these 2 numbers are, you have to add up to 20, then you're going to have to memorize that the maximum loss or maximum gain, in a debit spread is the difference in the strikes less than that debit. I personally just think it's easier again to say, okay, whatever these 2 numbers are, they add up to 20.
Yep.
I just think that's easier. But however you get there, you need to get there. That's the test point, is being able to tell me whatever those 2 numbers are. because that's going to be our maximum gain. Whoop. So 15, that's done. Boom, let's put that where we're going to see it there. And that's going to be our max gain. Smaller font. Okay, so we said there's 8 things you got to be able to do on a spread. Let's just review where we're at in this spread. Where we're at in this spread is we've identified it. We have determined debit or credit. We've determined exercise or expire. We've determined widen or narrow. We've got max gain, max loss. There's 6. So the last 2 things we got to be able to do is break even and bullish and bearish. Now, if you only remember one thing about options, the thing to remember is call up, put down. Call up, put down. Now, the mnemonic here we have is CAL. And CAL stands for call, add to the lower. Call, add to the lower. So we're going to take the lower strike and we're going to add the net premium. Now, again, Carlton, neener. You needed 179 to break even, and Dean only needs 175. You know, the reason I only need 175 is because I lowered my out-of-pocket cost, which is the whole point.
With the ceiling.
Yeah, so here, call, add to the lower. I'm going to take the lower strike, which is 170. Let's see if I can do it right this time. 170 plus 5. I think I got it right. 170. Okay, last thing we got to be able to do is determine bullish or bearish. And how do we determine if this is a bullish spread or a bearish spread?
Bullish spread. By I'm trying to think. It's I believe bullish.
You're correct. Be confident. You're correct. The larger premium dominates.
Mhm.
Now, there's a trick that you can also use. Let me show you the trick. So one thing is to know that the larger premium always dominates the position. And so here the dominant position is being long the call. The lower strike calls always have the greater premium. It will always be the dominant position. But another trick, I'm not sure if you know the memory trick, but it's called bulls. And so you could use the bulls trick if you'd like. It's just a trick. Don't tell anybody you're using it because, you know, they'll think you're a genius. Say, I bet I can tell you in 2 seconds whether any spread is bullish or bearish. Bull, 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 bear, bull, bull. They're going to think you're a genius. Any spread, because you are long the lower strike. And any spread, doesn't matter debit or credit, doesn't matter call or put. If you are long the lower strike, you are always going to be a bull. It's always going to be a bull spread if you are long the lower strike. It's just a trick, but it's a trick that works all the time. So, you know, you can just look at the spread and say, okay, well, which is the lower strike? And if I'm long that lower strike, well, then I'm a bull. And if not, I am a bear. And so this is a bullish spread. All right. So as we said, there are 8 things you got to be able to do on a spread. Let's just go back. Boom, 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 boom. We said 8 things you're going to be tested on. You know what we've been doing, by the way, and I only did this because I think you're pretty solid on the basics. But Carlton, you want to sound like a player? We've been legging into spreads. We've been legging into a spread, right? So we're starting with our base leg, and then we're rolling into spreads. You don't need to know that. It's not testable. What you do have to know is that that's a spread.
Right.
That's a basic option position. Yeah, you're pretty good at basics. Yeah, before I turned that spread, you nailed it. You said 179, bullish, unlimited gain, lost the premium. Yeah, excellent. So now we're just, you know, moving up the ladder, so to speak, and said, okay,
Right.
let's do some more stuff. So as you recall, I said, okay, you buy your 170 call at 9, my friend. I'm going to buy a 170 call at 9 too. We're both bullish. I said, but Carlton, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sell the 190s to lower my out-of-pocket cost because, you know, basically now I can almost cut in half the price of my ticket. right? I cut my ticket down from 9 to 5. So, you know, if I'm a loser, I'm going to lose less. By the way, and again, I'm not going to make as much as you potentially could make, but you know, hey, it is what it is. So first test question is, can you tell me of the 8 things that's a spread? The next thing we got to be able to do is determine debit or credit. Now you got that correct. As your tutor, I'm totally fine that you got that correct. But you know, what I would recommend as your tutor is before you move on, make a note of what that debit is. So
net
if I
of
were you,
premium.
besides just saying debit, I'd say it is a debit of 5, right? And the way we established it was a debit of 5 is by netting those premiums.
Yep.
So yeah, that's what you told me. Now, once we get that, we can rock and roll. Don't think about to get the menu done. But once you get the menu done, you say, okay, debit, exercise, widen goes together all the time. You'll be right every time. But once you get done, then you can think about it and say, okay, well, if I do these contracts and gets exercised, I'd be buying Apple at 170 and selling at 190. Yeah, that sounds great. And I need the difference to get larger, but that goes together all the time. So we've done 4 of the things. We've identified it. Even if that wasn't a test question, I just told you it is. And even if it wasn't, if you can't identify, you just stare at it going, I don't know, B. That's not what you want to do. You want to kind of say, oh, it's a spread.
Exactly.
We've identified it as a debit. We've said exercise. We've said widen. Our next thing is gain and loss. And we know the gain and loss always equals the difference in the strikes. That's the whole point of a spread, by the way. The whole point of a spread is saying, I want to play between these 2 prices, and then I don't want to play no more. So I'm saying I want to play between these 2 prices, and then I don't want to play no more. All about floors and ceilings. All the action takes place between the strikes. All the action. There's only 20 points of action there. Yeah, that's the boring part, right? You know, the boring part is, you know, 20 points. Yours is unlimited. Mine is not unlimited because I'm gonna have to give up the stock at 190, right? That's when you go neener to me, right? If Apple's 210, you're gonna say that's what you get for trying to be too clever, right? So of the 2 numbers that add up to 20, I think it's easier to either get the loss or the gain. So if it's a credit spread, we got our gain. We know the balance is our loss. If it's a debit spread, we got our loss and we know the balance is our gain. Now, if we don't get that, oh, you know, God, then we're going to memorize, right?
Yep.
So of those two numbers, what happened? What happened? I accidentally, oh man, I made that box and it won't let me now rewind. Oh, well, that's okay. We just do it the old fashioned way. So we said we had a 5 here. I'll be messing with the screen when I'm trying to do that. And that was 15. And then we had our break even. We used cal or push for a put spread, cal for a call spread, call add to the lower. Our lower strike was 170 plus the net. By the way, this is the whole point. Again, not testable, but remember the whole point of why team did this is to lower my out-of-pocket cost and lower my break even in my favor. So now I don't need Apple to go to 179. I only need Apple at 175 to break even. And by the way, it's easier for Apple to go to 175 than 179. And it is bullish. And we did that by the larger premium dominance. Okay, so that's one of your multiple option strategies you're held accountable for. Another multiple option strategy you're held accountable for is a straddle. So you're pretty good. Again, you were pretty good at this. This is what we did. And you kind of nailed this. You told me that if I did this, you were all over that. You were all over that and you got it correctly. You said, Dean, 179 unlimited, you could lose your premium. You were all over that. And then when we did this, you were all over it in a good way. As your tutor, I said, well, you got a kind of a big agenda for, your 90 minutes, but let's find out where you're at on your options. And I was pleasantly pleased, surprised that you are pretty squared away, it sounds like, on the basic positions. And again, I made you prove it. And then I made you give me the gain and losses for these, and you were correct. And so if I just thought Apple was going up, I would do this one, right? And if I just thought Apple was going down, I'd do this one. But now I say, well, I'm not sure what's going to happen to Apple. I just don't think it's going to stay at 170. And so now I'm going to do both of those. And we said on all these advanced option strategies, even if it wasn't a test question, it is. But even if it wasn't, you can't identify it, you don't know what to do next.
Right.
Right. And so that alone could be a test question. They could say your customer buys one Apple December 170 call at 9 and buys one Apple December 170 put at 9. When Apple's at 171, who cares? This can best be described as A, spread, B, straddle, ding, 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 ding. All right, so you have to be able to identify it. Now, the second thing you've got to be able to do on a straddle is calculate the break-evens. This is the only option strategy where you have two break-evens. You know how to do that? You know how to calculate the break-evens in a straddle? By the way, just it's not testable, but here's a picture of the stock price of Apple. Right, Apple could go to infinity.
Mhm.
And here is the strike price that we're straddling. That's why it's called a straddle, because we're straddling the strike price. Right, and here's our option strategies that we're using in the straddle. We're using a long call, and we're using a long put. And what we're straddling is the strike price of 170. So if this was just a 170 call, you tell me 179. If this was just a 170 put, you tell me 161. But here we're going to have two break evens. We're going to have our upside break even. And we're going to have our downside break even. Now, by the way, too, Carlton, on the test, they are going to give you some numbers. So I'm not being facetious here. You can muddle. you know, if you haven't memorized it, and you can get good at a T tracking money. So let me get my T fired up here. So, you know, when I got more than one thing going on, I want to be really kind of even more disciplined about, you know, my tracking of my money. And
Right.
so here I've got 9 out. And I've got 9 out. So I'm out a total of 18. So I'm just illustrating, if I buy the stock at 170 Apple and I sell at 188, I'm illustrating that indeed I would break even. Because that's what break even is, same dollars out as what?
Same
Dollars
dollars.
in. And if I bought the Apple at, again, my arithmetic is terrible, 170. If I bought the Apple at 152 and I stuck it to somebody at 170, again, I would break even. So in a straddle, we're going to have two break evens. And the way we're going to get our break evens is we're going to total the premium, strike price plus total premium. And that's going to give us our upside break even. Let's get a different color. So here our strike price is 170 plus 18. And that gives us our upside break even of 188. This is the only strategy on Series 7 in which you have two break evens. Now we're buying volatility again. You know, in a long call, we're buying upward volatility, and a long put, we're buying downward volatility. Here, we're buying volatility. We're just not sure what direction.
Mhm.
So we're going to have two. So the way we're going to get our downside break even is we're going to take our strike price again, strike price. Remember, you only remember one thing, call up, put down, minus total premiums. And that's going to give us our downside break even. And so that's going to be 170. Whoop. $170 minus 18 equals 152. And that is our downside break. And so let's just put that over here in our little, there's no charting or, charts, but sometimes it's helpful to visually see what's going on here. So there's my upside break even of 188. That's what we're straddling, right? And here's my downside break even of 152. Now, the third test question we have to be able to answer. So 4, not as bad as a spread. Remember, spread there was 8. On a straddle, there's 4. Can you tell me it's a straddle? Can you calculate the break evens? Can you determine where it's profitable? And then when do you use it? So now we got to figure out, where is it profitable? Where do we want the apple to be in relationship to this?
I didn't know you was an artist.
Yeah. Not so good. Sometimes I keep thinking I'm going to go to school someday and learn at least to do a decent stick figure, or I think it'd be really cool if I was competent enough to draw a picture of a bull or a bear quickly. But, who knows? But anyways, we have a great mnemonic for this one. So another memory aid. So in straddles, we had a couple memory aids. We had do, DEW, like Mountain Dew, or Nike, just do it. Debit, exercise, widen. When you're wide like Dean, you need to exercise. We have, in spreads, credit, expire, narrow. Credit has 6 letters, expire has 6 letters, narrow has 6 letters. We had cow, we had push. And here we have a memory aid called silo. Silo. And that's to remind us of profitability and straddle. Silo stands for short inside, long outside. Short inside, long outside. If it's a short straddle, this is not a short straddle. If this was a short straddle, it's not. But if it was, we would be profitable in between the two numbers. And this is not. This is a long straddle. So long straddle, we want the market price to be outside of these two numbers. So short inside, long outside. So the profitability here is when the apple is either above 188 or below 152.
I'm really glad.
I'll just show you. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm really glad you're giving me all these like acronyms. Like that's what I was looking for. Like really.
Okay. Yeah.
helps.
Well, tricks. Yeah. There's a happy medium between the tricks and understanding it, but either way, right? As long as you're getting right answers.
Right.
So let me just show you how we're going to use that, right? So if I show you, for example, I tell you on the test, the stock is 148. You would say, okay, well, 148 is 4 points outside my break even. That's a 4-point gain, right? If I show you, 198, you say, oh, that's a 10 points outside. That's a 10-point gain.
Yep.
By the way, I could, show you in the T too, right? If we buy the stock at 170 and then we sell at 198, it's a 10-point gain when it's all said and done, right? That's what that looks like. But so that's how I use it. By the way, if I show you on the test, I say the apple's 150, we could say I'm a loser because the market price is in between there. By the way, the worst case is the contracts expire, right? So the worst case is apple's 170 remains unchanged, and then you lose, by the way, easy to qualify, straddle, same qualification. Hey, is this your play money? Is this $1,800 of play money? Everybody's different, Carlton, It's not like he lost $100,000 in my world. That's a lot of money. And he said, didn't I tell you not to bother me? And I go, well, I thought this would be an exception. He said, well, it's not really a loss until I take it or realize it. I go, man, I wish I lived in your world. In my world, that's a lot of money. So, all right, our last thing here is when do you use it? And here we're buying volatility. So you use it when you think it's going to move, but you're not sure, whether it's going up or down, right? If I knew it was going up or down, then I would do that. So 4 questions. I'm going to show you a short straddle here in just a minute. So here's our straddle. And we said there are 4 things on a straddle. I'm showing you a long straddle. So I'm going to show you short straddle next. But there's our straddle. So we have to be able to identify it. We have to be able to calculate the break-evens. The way we're going to calculate the break-evens is by totaling the premiums, adding it to the call, subtracting it from the put. The only strategy in which we have 2 break-evens, an upside break-even and a downside break-even. Where is it profitable? We got a great memory aid, silo, short inside, long outside. We just can compare that and see where it's at. And then when do we use it? So now if we thought Apple was going to stay within the trading range. So I say, do you think, Carlton, Apple's going to stay between now and December between 152 and 188? You go,
Yes.
geez,
We would probably
152 and 188. What's it at right now? I said, right now, Apple's at 171. You go, wow. I said, well, now, Carlton, I will warn you, though, that Apple is a very volatile stock. Test question. It's very volatile, Carlton, as compared to the market as a whole. It has a high
premium.
term. There you go. Excellent. Right. So if Apple has a beta 2, it means it's going to be twice as volatile. So something to recognize in this strategy. There are some strategies that kind of sound good, but aren't so good. And so now we're going to sell 1 Apple. Now, again, you were very good at these basic positions. I mean, when we did this, you nailed this. You gave me all the right answers about somebody who's short the call. I think I asked you a long call, but you told me the break-even is 179. The max gain is 900. Guaranteed test question. Max loss is unlimited. This is not a very smart thing. This is a naked or uncovered call. So that's not smart. There's a lot of smarter ways to be a bear than this. Right. And if you're wrong, if your max gain is 900 now. And then we say, okay, well, we're going to do both. We have long straddles and short straddles. And so now we're going to sell 1 Apple December 170 put at 9. And test question number 1 is, can you identify that? Is that a spread? Is that a combination? Is that a straddle? You've got to be able to tell me that what you're looking at is a straddle. Now, by the way, there are straddles with different strike prices, and those are called combinations. You wouldn't do anything differently. You wouldn't do anything differently. So if this was an Apple 170 call and a 165 put, you would do everything the same way. So we've identified it. So, again, here's our market price of Apple. The Apple can go from 0 to infinity. And again, we're straddling the strike price. And the strike price we're straddling is 170. All right, so what's our next thing we're going to have to do? Our second thing we have to be able to do on a straddle is calculate the break-evens. It's the only strategy in which we have 2 break-evens. We have an upside break-even. We have an upside break-even. And we have a downside break-even. So how do we calculate the break-evens?
Strike price plus the combined premium.
Right on. So what we're going to do is we're going to total the premium. So it's going to be strike price plus total premium. And that's going to give us our upside break even.
Yep. And then strike price minus total premiums will give you the
downside. Indeed. And remember, it's the only one in which we actually have 2 break evens.
Yep.
And so here we're going to have, so when we do this, we're going to get our combined premium is going to be 18. And we're straddling the strike price line, which is 170. And so it's going to be 170 minus 18 and 170 plus 18. And we get our break even of 188 and 152. So now it's a cushion. I think of that as kind of like a cushion. So here again in our cushion kind of thing, right? Even if it moves against us, we have a little bit of a cushion, and we have an 18-point cushion. Oh, we do have a little bit of a problem. They do have a potential problem. So we've got our break-evens. Where is it profitable? So remember, we had a mnemonic for where it's profitable. Remember what our mnemonic, our memory aid was?
Short inside.
Yeah, silo, short inside, long outside. Now, the reason that's helpful is now I know that on the test, if they give me, for example, 160, I know that's going to be a profit. That alone will give me a 50-50. It's 8 points within the break even, so I make 8 points. If they give me 140, I know it's not going to be profitable.
Right.
And so that's why that's helpful. And then our last question is, when do we use it? When do we use it? So we use a short straddle when we expect it to stay within the trading range, right? So neutral means it doesn't move. We don't want it to move within that trading range. Because I told you, pretty seductive, right? Because, you think Apple's going to stay between 152 and 188. But remember, once it goes outside the break even, this has unlimited loss potential, right? Because you have that naked call in there. All right, so I think you're squared away on the speculative option strategies. So we went over the speculative option strategies. So what we haven't talked about is people who are coming to the options market that have a stock position. Then they're entirely different players. So, if you're coming to the option market because you have a stock, that's an entirely different player. So if I'm your registered option principal and you have an option agreement or an option account you want to open, I say, Carlton, are they a speculator or are they a hedger? You go, what's that mean? I go, well, Carlton, what I'm asking is, are they speculating on the stock price? The people who are long a call or long a put or long a straddle or long a spread or short a call or short a bid or short a straddle, short a spread, those are all people just making a bet on the stock price. Now, they may end up with the stock position, but they don't initially start with the stock position. Exactly. The other players we have coming to the options market are people who already have a stock position. And they either can be long the stock or they can be short the stock. Those are the only two positions you can have. So on the test, if I say the customer buys 100 shares of Apple at 171, you say, this is a stock position. So boy, as a test taker, the minute you see shares there, you got to kind of slow your roll, so to speak, and say, okay, I'm looking at a guy who has a stock. The stock always dominates. So it doesn't matter what I'm about to add to this position. It doesn't matter whether I'm going to add a call or a put to this position. You should be able to tell me this is a bullish position because the stock always dominates. The stock always dominates. So in any option, stock plus option question, the minute you see there's a stock position, that's what's driving the position. You can't be letting an option tail wag the stock dog. This is a stock. And now I'm either going to be interested in either income or protection. So we know that if I'm interested in income, I want to bring some money in, I'm going to sell an option contract. I'm going to do an opening sale. I'm going to go short. And if I'm interested in protection, I'm going to buy an option contract. You know, I think it's kind of like insurance, right? Insurance costs money. So I'm either going to sell the option contract. What I'm interested in being able to do is what we call the offset. So right now, what I did is I bought 100 shares of Apple. And so the offset would be able to sell the Apple. So we can already kind of get our T fired up and say, okay, well, we paid 171 for the stock. And I know that what I want to be able to do is the offset, which means I want to be able to sell the stock. So that means that's helpful because that means now I know I'm either going to sell the call contract because I want to have, I don't need to buy the stock. I've already done that. So what I'm interested in being able to do is what's called the offset. Let's just put that in there. The offset, which is here. What I mean by that is I want to be able to sell the stock I bought. I don't want to buy more, right? So I'm interested in being able to sell the stock. The offset is to sell the stock. So I'm either going to establish the obligation to sell the stock or a choice to sell the stock. I'm either interested in test question suitability, generating additional income on my Apple stock. I mean, this sounds pretty cool. I say, hey, Carlton, how would you like to get several $100s to agree to sell high stock you just bought low? Somebody will give you several $100s, maybe even more than 1,000 to agree to sell Apple at 180 that you just bought at 171. In fact, yeah, I'd say, Carl, there's three sources of profit. One source of profit is 171 to 180. That's 9 points for you there. You get Apple pays dividends. Those are yours to keep. And then the premium is yours to keep. So, and even if the stock goes down, you'll have a little bit of a cushion. So it sounds pretty good. And now what you also might want to be able to do though, is put in a floor. You might want to be interested in terms of suitability, being able to participate in a big price increase, but not participate in a big price decline. You might want to put in a ceiling, a big price increase, but not a decline. So what you might want to do is put in a floor. Construction costs money. Now, remember what's going on here is the stock is driving the position. All right, so we're going to do a buy right or a covered call. We're going to do a buy right or a covered call. You have to know this by name. You have to be able to identify this. You have to be able to identify this as, you know, again, like we had to identify a straddle, we had to identify a spread. This has to be identified as not a naked call. No, no, no. Not an uncovered call. No, no, no. This is a covered call because you're covered. You got the stock. Now, be careful. Don't be looking for tricks. But, you know, there's no such thing as partially naked, my friend. So if you write two calls, you know, sometimes people get hung up and go, well, I'm only naked on one. No, you can only write as many calls as you have contracts. So you can only write one call here. So we're going to write one Apple. Now we got to decide how long are we willing to give up the stock. You know, longer term option contracts always have greater premiums. So man, Carlton, if we write an Apple leap, we would get some big money. Because the time value in a leap would be outrageous. You know what a leap is, test question?
Not sure.
A leap is a option contract that goes out to technically 39 months, in practice 30 months. And so you don't know that leap stands for long-term equity appreciation potential security. Thank God. But you do need to know that's a test question to know that leap.
You said that was 39 months?
What's that?
You said that was 39 months?
technically, and in practice, 30 months. And so that is
30.
test. So that is a test question. So we're not going to write a leap. We're not going to write a leap. We get big money for that, right? And by the way, that's the test question, is knowing that it goes more than a year. It's the only one that goes more than a year. So, right, one apple. Let's say we go for, let's write the, what is this? This is August. Let's go for the Marches next year. That'll still give us some big money.
It should.
I'll get that in there. This is really an important decision, my friend. We're going to agree to give up the stock at the strike price. And so the disadvantage of this strategy is we're not going to participate past the strike. So the more bullish we are, the higher the strike we're going to write. The less bullish we are, the lower the strike we're going to write. So, we got to be a little careful. Now, conversation again isn't testable, but, this is where customers get mad, is when Apple goes to like 200 and they got to give it up at, 180. I used to make all my, I used to make all my customers sign a happy letter, a big boy letter, a big girl letter, saying, do you understand, Carlton, that if you get exercised, you're going to be delivering the Apple at 180. So that when it's 190 and you get called away, you say, I didn't know that. I said, well, here's your signature saying you understood that. We're going to get some big money for this. Let's say we get 13 points for this. So we brought in 13. Now, again, I always, when I got a lot of things going on, this is just my process. You don't have to follow Dean's process. But what I like to do is I like underneath my option contract always to keep it straight in my mind, what I'm looking at. And what I'm looking at here is an obligation. Contract specifications haven't changed. That's an obligation to sell the stock at the strike price. Now, the big difference here is we actually have the stock. So that's a huge, huge difference between a naked or uncovered call. Okay, so then what I like to do is I like to track my money. So I'm going to put my 13 points in here. So we brought in 13 points here. We'll put that in there. By the way, that's kind of cool. Kind of cool. We lowered our out-of-pocket cost. This is the one time and the one time only that we have a call and we're not adding to get the break even. The way we're going to get the break even here is we're going to take the stock cost, what we paid for the stock,
And subtract it, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. So I'm pretty pleased with your performance as it relates to these things. Less the premium, and that's going to equal our break even. So we are lowering our out-of-pocket cost, right, from 171, because that's what we paid for the stock.
Yep.
And then we brought in for the option contract 13. And I'm not going to let you catch me again, my friend. So I'm going to use my calculator. Embarrassing. It's embarrassing, but I'm not good at arithmetic. And my calculator says that's 158. By the way, they do offer you a simple function calculator at the test, though.
Right.
Yeah, not hubris, by the way. He's a real deal. He said, Dean, I'm a math geek in a good way. I mean, he's bragging about his math geek. I don't need to memorize anything. Give me 2 numbers, I can solve for the third. And I'm not that guy. But he passed. And he called me. He said, damn it, Dean, I didn't memorize any of the formulas. I was able to do the math, but they asked me the formula not to do the math. Just what's the formula? He said, I didn't know what the formula was because, as I told you, remember, I don't memorize formulas. He said he had to do it in his head and then figure out the one they offered him.
He may hold them.
But he gets for not memorizing. So that's our break even. The biggest thing here, the biggest test question is recognizing that we don't participate past the strike. So the biggest thing you got to recognize on your exam is that we got to give up the Apple at 180. And we don't participate past that. And so that's not going to be, bueno in terms of what we got to give up the stock at. So the max gain is going to be, now there's a couple ways to think about the max gain. Now remember, they're going to have answer sets in front of you. You're going to have answer sets in front of you on the test. So you can either say, I can either net the columns, and say, okay, well, the max gain is 193 minus 171. All I'm doing is netting out the numbers and saying, okay, well, I brought in 193 and I paid out 171. My max gain is 22 points. So that's one way you can do the max gain. Another you could do it is to take your break even, because this is your net out of pocket cost here. So your net out of pocket for this position, 153. Right, that's net out of pocket. What I mean by that is you paid 171 for the stock. You brought in 13 points for the option. And now you can say, okay, well, I have to give up the stock at the strike price. So another way you could proceed is by saying it's going to be the break even to the strike, which in this case is going to be 180. And that's another way to get the break even. Or excuse me, right, as I say, okay, so that's my strike price. And that's another way to proceed. So you could say, okay, well, I'm net out of pocket. I'm net out of pocket 158. I got to sell the stock at 180. So again, I take the 180 and I minus the 158. That's another way to get the 22 points. Right. So a couple ways to go. The main thing is to know that you do not participate past the strike price. Right. That's it. Game over. You got to give up the stock. All right. So let's look at this one real quick, and then we'll do one more. And the last one I want to show you is how to protect the stock position. So we said if you have a stock position, you're either going to want income or protection. I chose income first because that's the one that shows up more often. So we said we're going to do a covered call. We're going to generate some additional income. We're going to agree to sell high stock we just bought low. And so we did a buy right or a covered call. We did a buy right or a covered call. We're interested in the offset. And so we were interested in generating additional income. And so boom, that's a covered call. We determined our break even. You nailed it. You had this, by the way. I'm very pleased with as a tutor that you are pretty good on the stuff. The memory work looks like you paid the price. So, you know, what you want to do now is make sure you're doing enough practice questions to see how to translate that into what we're talking about. We said the downside of this is you don't participate past the strike. You got to give up the stock at 180. All right. So the last one I want to show you today is how to protect this stock position. Let's go all the way back. And now, instead of selling a call, whoa. Are you still there? Okay. I redid my studio here, and I've got these buttons. I press them. Did you see anything happen? Or was
No.
it okay, cool. Okay, so I hit buttons and something down. Oh, I wonder, is Carlton still there? Is the whiteboard still up? No, I'm gonna have to do some more work here. Okay, so now we're going to protect the stock position. Okay. We're going to buy term insurance on the stock position. So we're going to go buy. Now, how many contracts do we need to protect 100 shares? Do we need 2 contracts or one contract? How many contracts do we need?
Just one. Yeah,
just one, right? One Apple. Now we got to decide how long we want the protection in place. The longer we want the protection in place, the more money we're going to have to pay. So let's say we go out to March. And now we got to decide at what price do we want to be able to sell. A choice to sell at a higher strike will give us greater protection, but it will also cost us more money. So, Carl, I don't know if you know, if I've slipped in 3 things here in the session. And, you know, it's being recorded. I'll send the recording tomorrow. When is your test day, by the way? Did we ever find out when your test day is?
It's Wednesday.
Woo! Okay. So I said longer term option contracts always have greater premiums. I said lower strike call contracts always have greater premiums. And higher strike put contracts always have greater premiums. So I just said a choice to sell at a higher price will give us more protection, but it will also cost us more money. Right. So let's go for a 170 put. And let's say we get that protection for 4. Okay, as I said, what I like to do is underneath that, I like to kind of write what am I looking at. And what I'm looking at here is a choice to sell the stock I own. That's a much different thing. I'm not a bear. I'm not buying a speculative put. No, no, no. I said, really important. The stock always dominates. The minute we bought 100 shares of the stocks, we put ourselves in the bull camp. It doesn't matter. You can't let the tail wag the dog. So that put is not a bearish position. That put is protecting this stock position. I have a choice to sell because I remember that's what I want to be able to do is the offset. Well, so if I'm your ROP, your registered option principal, I say, what does your guy want to be approved for? And he says, Dean, he wants to be approved to buy puts on stocks that he owns. Smart guy. He's approved. That's just a really kind of a smart thing to do. So the protection is going to cost us some money. This is the one time and the one time only that we have a put and we are not subtracting. And the reason we're not subtracting is because this is not a speculative long put. This is a put that's protecting a stock position. And so the break even is going to be the stock cost, what we paid for the protection, plus what we paid for the protection. So stock cost, that's what we paid for the stock. We paid 171 for the Apple. We'll put that there. Plus the premium, what we paid for the protection. This is the one time and the one time only that we have a put and we're actually adding to get break even. So the break even here, let me just put a little arrow. I like to put, whenever I'm introducing a number into my T, I always want to make sure I make a line just to know that I'm the one who put that 175. That didn't come from the given information. That was from me subtotaling that column. And so that's going to be my break even is 175. It's the one time and the one time only that I actually have a put and I'm not subtracting. Again, the reason I'm not subtracting is because this is not an option position. Now, the nifty thing here now is anytime I want, I can exercise my choice to sell at 170. Pretty cool. Anytime I want, I can exercise my choice to sell at 170. So the most I can lose is the break even to the strike. Pretty cool. Right? That's pretty cool that I don't have any downside past 170. And that's why you do that.
It's pretty smart.
Very smart. It's why, it's a very smart position. That's why, an option principal would just love you for doing this, right? He'd say, well, why would you not want to do this? I had a doctor client once, he drove me nuts. And the reason I was so mad at him is because we had actually got pretty lucky on the stock, went from like 90 to 180. And I said, doctor, why don't we buy a 175 put for 4? We're out 90 for the stock, 4 points for the reduction. And we could sell anytime we want at 175. We would have a guaranteed profit. And he said, well, do you get a commission for that? I wasn't even thinking about my commission. And he said, oh, the puts expire? I go, yeah. Carlton, the foundation of Mark Cuban's fortune is from doing a hedge like this. This is a hedge. This is an effective hedge. It works. Anyways, Mark Cuban had sold broadcast.com to Yahoo for a couple $2 billion in Yahoo stock. And he said, well, no sense going backwards. Remember, I'm bullish here. I'd sell the stock. Mark Cuban's bullish. I'd sell the stock. But he bought a choice to sell every share that he got from Yahoo at $95 a share. And so when the puts expired, Yahoo was a $20 stock. So is Mark going to sell it at 20 or is he going to exercise the puts? He's going to exercise the puts. He had, and that year he had $200 million in capital gains tax. I don't know him personally. I know him casually. I go, man, that was so cool sticking it to people in 95, $200 million capital gain tax. He goes, well, Dean, I'm not happy about that. I said, well, you could have been stupid. I mean, so why not buy the product? I guess it's like any kind of insurance, right? If you don't need it, you don't file a claim. I guess you could think of it a waste of money, but I don't buy insurance because I plan on wrecking. I buy the insurance in case I'm wrong. So indeed, very smart thing to do. All right. We didn't get to fixed income, but we did get to suitability. On a lot of this leads into options. Let me just comment on suitability. A lot of times people struggle with suitability because they're not solid on the products, investment vehicles, because that's the analogy they love. Making sure you don't put the wrong person into the wrong investment vehicle. So to get the suitability questions right, you got to know suitability. Like, if you come out of my car lot, I say, oh, Ferrari, no, not for you. Let's go look at something more suitable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think car dealers have suitability. I mean, I remember I bought a car, and my sister-in-law at the time said, that is the most unfunctional thing I've ever seen. I go, indeed, that's what this thing screams. The whole point of this car is it's not functional. That's the scream to the world. I can buy a car that's not functional. So, but we want to make sure we can determine suitability. Now, you brought up fixed income. And fixed income, you're going to be held accountable for 3 issuers of fixed income: corporate issuers of bonds, municipal issuers of bonds, and the US government. Of those 3, munis are the big ones, going to be revenues and GOs. I would highly recommend you take a sheet of paper, fold it in half, one side, write all the things associated with GOs and all the things with revenues. So when I sit down with you, that's, by the way, on the test outline, that's function 3 is 91 questions on investment vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
FINRA organizes it in 4 functions. It makes sense. Function 1 is find a customer. That's function 1 of the test, according to FINRA. Function 2 is open the account. Function 3 is put something in the account, in an investment vehicle, right? So in function 2, I say, Carlton, for me to do a really good job for you over time, I need to know a lot about you. The more I know about you, the better I can be in determining suitability. Can you tell me something about you? And you say, well, I'm kind of at a loss. I go, well, Carlton, let me read you a list of investment objectives. I'll have you rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being very important, 1 not important at all. Safety of principle, 10. Okay, well, then we don't talk options. Joking. Liquidity, 10. We don't sell you a partnership. I'm hinting that it's always negative suitability on the test, not positive suitability. I had a customer once, he said, I'm already rich, just don't make me poor. Okay, no, right? Only investment grade bonds, triple B, right? Dean, I'm sold, I don't buy green bananas. Okay, we're not going to buy them a 20-year treasury, right? So that's how you're going to go about solving those questions. So I think you had fixed end suitability options. Was there anything else in your notes? Now, you said you're testing Wednesday, so you don't need to book a tutoring if you just need me to check in with you on a Zoom and you've got to go over a couple of things or something. I like to practice the Hippocratic Oath. And what I mean by that is Tuesday, you should really just be kind of guarding your psyche. As your tutor, I feel you're ready. I didn't find anything that makes me think you haven't put in the work to pass Wednesday. You're pretty solid on a lot of stuff. I'm just checking your notes here. Options, suitability, fixed income. Okay.
Yeah, options was the biggest one, and you covered
you're pretty good. You were pretty good. There's lots of. Did you find me on the YouTube channel? How did you find me?
Yeah, so I work for UBS, and some of my coworkers show me the YouTube videos, and I believe one coworker from the class before me also did a tutoring session.
Yeah, well, good. What I was going to say is the reason I ask is you also have all those videos too, so you can you got your own personalized video. And now I know you're testing Wednesday, I'll get out to you first thing in the morning from the Zoom. And then, but you also there's all kinds of carve outs on spreads or straddles, anything you want to revisit. Protective puts, covered calls. Make sure what are you scoring on practice files? Have you done your green light yet for STC?
Yeah, on the STC exams, I've been getting low to mid 80s.
Oh, but, fantastic, Carlton! Fantastic. You are not at risk, my friend. You are not at risk. So you should think of your tutoring sessions as an insurance policy.
Basically, that's why I thought.
80. I thought I'm not surprised based on how well you performed on the basic options and stuff. I asked you. I poked around in your brain housing group in these 90 minutes. I found it to be adequate to pass the test, and with the addition of those indicators, everything should be fine. So even more so, make sure you don't wear yourself out on Tuesday. Don't, feel free to put up your guard and tell people, hey, I'm emotionally fragile right now. I'm testing. Please don't bother me. Are you going to have to go to work Monday and Tuesday?
No. So I have to go in tomorrow, but they give us the day before to as a study day. So
I love it. So keep it low key. You just got to stick the landing, right? I call it the 747 principle. It takes a 747, 120% of rate of power to get off the ground. Nose back, seats up. Only takes that to hover. Good news. You got this thing in flight, and all you got to do Wednesday is stick that landing. So you're in great shape. So don't lose your rhythm. So the only thing I'd say about Tuesday is do enough low key work that you're still in your Series 7 rhythm, because most people don't wake up Wednesday morning and think Series 7. So you want to do enough to kind of stay in that rhythm. What time Wednesday?
I have to double check the time. I believe it's like 11 o'clock. It's
Oh,
sometime
perfect.
around.
Okay, so I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. All right, so you know where to find me. I'll be sending you some good energy Wednesday, and you don't owe me a call, but please, I want to know what happened to you if I don't hear from you sooner. And then remember, you need any help between now and Wednesday, just you don't need to book tutoring. It won't let you book. I'm booked up, so it won't let you, even if you tried. But you don't need to. Just let me know. I'll send you a Zoom if you need to check in. You need a raw, whatever. Just let me know.
So what's the best way to reach you, through email?
Yeah, do you got my email? You should have my email. Do you have that? DeanTenney@gmail. Yeah, just send me an email, and I'll make sure that if you need something, we'll get it to you between now and Wednesday. Because you mainly, like I say, you just want to lock it down now. You've executed a study plan. The work is shown, so you just want, like I say, you just want to. The days of cramming the night before are over, so your study plan, for all intents and purposes, is kind of over tomorrow. So what are we going to do tomorrow? That's your last taxing work day. If you want to work your ass off tomorrow, that's fine. Maybe do another green light, whatever. But you just don't want to wear yourself out. But you can put in a full work day Monday, Tuesday. You really got to downshift a little bit, because what you really want to make sure is that Wednesday you're well rested. So if you're going to suffer anxiety, maybe you want to get a good night's rest Monday because you don't get one Tuesday. But I can't tell you how important sleep is. So make sure that Tuesday night you're going into Wednesday well rested, because you want your reading skills to be in top form, right?
Right.
Okay. All right, my friend. Good tutoring session. I'm excited to see you pass. What's after that? 66?
Yes.
Okay, so you got two more legs. You got your SIE. Want to know on the SIE?
Yeah, 1-0 SIE.
Okay, so this will be 2-0, and then you go 3-0. Trifecta.
I appreciate your time.
You bet. It was my pleasure. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
All right, sounds good. Bye.